Okie dokie. And then you move stuff around too if you want to get more comfortable. Yeah.
Okay.
Trees.
Yeah.
Same here.
Hi. For this.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is a consultation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Before we get started, we put on the website, we put on the consultation form where we start recording training sessions, Zoom sessions, and consultations.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah, we don't do any training here. At least during consultation, I get a feel for what you're needing, what you're wanting,
Yeah.
a feel for your dog. If you wanted to use treats or do whatever you do, that's perfectly fine. So I read that you did some like baseline kind of puppy obedience type stuff.
Yeah, we did the 8-week puppy class through the breeder we got him with, so he's pretty decent with sit, stay, down, you know, place on the little mat thing there, so he's pretty good, but what we're working now through is the leash training, right? We started to institute the pinch collar here, I don't know, about a week ago, and he doesn't completely hate it, but you can tell he doesn't like it. So now it's just kind of getting him to go on walks, not be yanking in certain directions. I mean, I'd say he's improved quite a bit over the last few weeks to month, but his move now is like when he sees a dog coming towards him, he plays it, right? And then waits, and then he wants to play with him right away.
And we definitely had him in puppy classes when he was right away.
Ollie.
But due to COVID, so many got canceled.
Yeah.
And then he'd gotten sick, so we didn't want to bring him around other dogs to get him sick.
Right.
So we missed like a few classes, but with COVID being,
Didn't really matter.
yeah.
Yeah. I noticed he's a little bit spooky. Have you noticed that's a puppy, or is that like something that's more recent?
It's something more recent, I would think.
Sure.
I mean, a little bit skittish once in a while when he's in new places, but I think part of it is too, he's been to the vet so many times in the last few months, it's just like, it attributes like new places with like, oh no, you're gonna give me medicine or something, so.
Sure. Okay. And then with the prong collar, was this something that you researched and kind of just applied yourself, or was it like, you know, somebody recommended it?
No, nobody recommended it. It was something we kind of applied ourselves. We had the martingale collars before that, and that worked pretty well too. But particularly once he got a little bit bigger and she was walking, it was like, needed something that offered a little bit more control.
Okay. Anything else?
No, I don't think so.
And because I have another consultation, and I'm confused. Were you trying to operationalize it?
Yeah, that would be really
Okay.
cool. Obviously, see how it goes, and then go through steps 1 and 2 before we get to the next few. But yeah, that would be really cool.
Okay. So what we're gonna do here is, instead of trying to console him, you're gonna pull up on your prong, just straight up, 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 up. Wait a moment. Keep it there, and then you're gonna almost keep up. Now relax. Now on his hindquarters, you're gonna pull up and then press down on his hindquarters. Pull him away. Yep. And now relax like that. Okay. So we're not gonna tell him sit. Every time he gets up, you're gonna pull straight up in your prong. Yep. Like that. And you're gonna press down on his hindquarters. Yep. There you go. And then as soon as he gives you that, you're just gonna relax. There you go. And you're gonna relax. And every time he gets up, you're gonna just keep repeating that, okay? So when he starts to get anxious or worked up because he's in an unfamiliar environment, we tend to want to console. Dogs don't understand console. That's a human thing, right? Because you can explain to someone, hey, it's okay, tomorrow's gonna be a better day, blah, 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 right? For dogs, he thinks you're actually reinforcing the behavior. So petting is a reinforcer. So like if you say sit and he sits, good boy, you would pet him, right? So here, when he starts to bark or get worked up and you're petting him, you're telling him, yes, you should bark and get worked up, okay? So it's kind of like when dogs bark at other dogs, a lot of people stop and they kind of just sit there and console them, and you're actually telling the dog, keep barking at the other dog.
Right.
It's something that we do in protection training. So like if we're trying to teach a dog to be aggressive on command and protect the handler from threat, we create suspicion and frustration, which is lunging and barking, and we're gonna build that. But you'll see us pulling the dog back and then petting them to tell them, keep doing that.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
So it's a little thing, but it makes a big difference. The reason why we pull up is up de-escalates the brain. This is fine. Up de-escalates the brain, where back and up and back escalate the brain. Okay, so that makes things worse, regardless of the tool that you're using. Harness would be the worst, but even if you're using a prong up. Yep.
And why do you say harness is the worst?
Because harnesses, one, put the dog more in control because it's on their chest. And when dogs feel pressure, man, he's good with people.
Yeah.
He actually really is. He actually never barks at
This is-
anyone.
Sure.
Normally, people are really scared of him, but he's never the first dog to bark. He never approaches. A dog like attacked him like a couple weeks ago, and he just like sat there. Like he doesn't. He's not really actually aggressive.
Sure.
He's pretty good temperament as far as like he doesn't fight. You know, people. You know, normally.
Yeah, this is frustration.
But
You
normally,
got it. Almost there. There you
good
go.
boy.
So, and here we wouldn't say good boy because you're putting in energy. So a lot of people do things just
Yeah.
wrong, but I'm completely calm,
Yeah.
Yeah.
right? And I don't say anything to him. I'm communicating to him using pressure,
Right.
which is a dog's primary form of communication. So pressure is everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Growing up, we had pure pressure, right? You guys drive,
Mm-hmm.
you go on the expressway.
Mm-hmm.
You ever had someone drive really close to your rear end?
Oh, yeah.
Yep, and it makes you feel uncomfortable, right? And you might speed up, you might switch lanes, you might do nothing, or you might brake check them. But they're doing that to garner a response from you. Whether or not it's the response they want is a different thing,
Mhm.
okay? So same thing here. Think of your prong as pressure. When you pull up on it, you're putting biting pressure on him. And then once he gives you what you're looking for, you would release that pressure, okay? So right now, because when you had him, what happened was you gave too much slack. So more slack he has, more leverage he has because he can get away from you. First thing I did was grab close to the prong. That keeps him restricted. Dogs have no strength left and right. Their strength is forward, back, right? So I use that to my advantage. I pull up and I start to swing his hip around.
Right.
And then he got a little frustrated because he doesn't know me.
Mhm.
He's in an unfamiliar environment, right? So then I just repeated that, and I kept the pressure on. And the moment he started to relax, everything disappeared. So he goes, oh, okay. He's like, this is all you wanted me to do.
Right.
And I go, yes. So people would see that and they would say, why don't you just tell the dog to sit? Because sit is a mechanical response. Put your butt down.
Mhm.
That's it. But the brain can still be frustrated. The brain can still be anxious or nervous. And what I want is relaxation.
Mhm.
Okay, because relaxation is the opposite of like anxious, nervous, unsure. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So we have obedience and we have behavior, and it's important to recognize the difference between the two.
Sure.
And I educate people on this, like that's part of just what we do.
Yeah.
Because most people come in thinking the issue is obedience. You don't know how many times in like 10 years I've heard someone say, Jesse, my dog bites people, he needs to learn how to sit. And I go, how to sit fix the problem? I'm like, well, if the dog's sitting, the dog can't bite the person. I'm
So
like,
there's
well,
kind of two different categories. There's obedience, and then there's just everyday attitude and just how the dog reacts and lives.
correct. And it's the same thing for humans.
Yeah.
So for us, we have education,
Mhm.
math, English, science, and then we have morality. Don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, right? So think of it as obedience is education, behavior is morality, right? Sit, stay, come, math, English, science, don't jump, don't bark, don't bite, don't lie, don't steal, don't cheat, right? So a very educated person can also be a terrible person, but a very good person may not be the smartest person,
Sure.
right? So, and there's obviously different kinds of variations of that. It's the same thing for dogs. So here, people tend to prioritize obedience, whereas I prioritize behavior.
Yeah.
Because behavior is actually what gets dogs returned and stuff like that,
Right.
right? And for like the dumbest reasons too, like the dog jumps on people and they won't stop jumping.
Sure.
Or like I couldn't potty train the dog and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's important to know both. And the tool that you have here, the prong collar, is a very powerful tool.
I was gonna say, do you think we instituted it too early? I
No.
mean, he's 10 months. I was kind of waiting until I felt he was big enough, which might be a little ridiculous, but I mean, obviously he's a big dog as it is, but kind of holding off on it until we really felt the need for it. And then as of recent, it was like, you know, need a little bit more control on the walks. And
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. So prong or negative pressure, we apply at 6 months.
Okay.
So at 6 months,
All right,
dogs
cool.
begin to treat their puppies as like adults.
Mhm.
And at 6 months, we can train puppies to an adult level.
Right.
They may not learn as fast, there's like a little bit of a delay,
Mhm.
but they can be pressed to the same level.
Okay.
Okay, and then for larger breed dogs like him, Great Danes, Mastiffs, Concord Corsos, you can actually start them even earlier because they mature a little bit faster
Okay.
than like a small dog would. Okay,
Okay.
but there's like no such thing as, in my opinion, as in like too late.
Okay.
Okay, because when we're dealing with these things, aversives can teach things at any point in your life, right? So aversives are meant to deter things. They can also be meant as motivators. Okay. So in training, we have 4 quadrants: positive reinforcement, positive punishment, negative reinforcement, negative punishment. Okay. Most common one being positive reinforcement, using food, right? If I say sit and he sits, I feed and I reward. So we're saying do that again, right? But where food falls short is if he doesn't sit, what's the consequence?
Mhm.
Oh, he doesn't get the reward. But that's not a consequence to a dog like it would be for a human. Growing up, my mom can say, hey, Jesse, if you don't do your homework, you're not going to see your friends for a month.
Right.
And I could process all that. And I go, well, I don't want to not see my friends for a month, so I'm going to do my homework, right? He doesn't understand where he's like, oh, you said sit. Oh, but if I don't get it, I'm not going to get that piece of chicken.
Right.
Oh, man. Right? Like, you don't think that way.
Right.
So that's where it falls short in terms of behavior and or stopping things. Or if the dog's under too much stress, they're not going to care about food. So that's where things like positive punishment or negative punishment come into play. And in that sense, with the 4 quadrants, positive and negative mean add and subtract. Okay, so add something good, add something bad, take something good, take something bad. That's how that ends up working out.
Right.
So when I took them from you and I added pressure, I technically added something bad. Okay, and I kept him under pressure until he gave me what I was looking for, which was relaxation, and then I took away something bad.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, and for dogs, dogs don't like positive reinforce each other, right?
Right.
If he were to get out of line, a dog would just bite him. And that doesn't make that dog aggressive. That's how they communicate,
Right.
okay? But the humans, for whatever reason, don't see that. And it's kind of a very commonly promoted, the positive reinforcement is like the only way to train and it's the most effective way to train. And in my book, it's the least. It's definitely great for as a reinforcer, but when we start to get things like this, or I get a lot of dogs that struggle with overstimulation issues, which is they're just everything all the time on 10, it's because no one's told them not to do stuff.
Right.
Okay, so it's a balance of all these things.
Mhm.
So prong is a very powerful tool. It's a great tool, but it's a little bit more difficult for the average dog owner to use because it requires technical skill. Also, it's fitted in correctly.
Okay.
It's fitted all the way at the base when it really should be fitted all the way up here.
So even tighter, huh?
Yeah, you have to remove a couple of prongs there. I believe that's the correct size. It looks like a 3mm. So, when it comes to the prong collar, very effective. I mean, it's better than anything else that you would use. My primary tool of choice is, of course, remote collar. Okay. So, are you guys familiar with that technology?
Yeah, I've never used one, but I know of that.
So e-collar is just a miniaturized TENS unit. They use the technology on humans all the time. If you go to a chiropractor or physical therapist, sometimes they use it there. It's sort of this little circles with the wires and it moves your muscles. So it's just a muscle stimulator. That's an e-collar. Okay, so a lot of people think e-collar is like electrocution.
Right.
They think that they're shocking their dog. And that's incorrect. The term shock comes from old school e-collars. Used to have like 5 settings. And the ones that we use now have 127. Okay,
Oh,
so
wow.
5 and 127 are the same, but we have 122 more divisions.
Right.
So we can really fine tune it. So before, if your dog was yelping at 3 and you're not listening at 2, you were kind of stuck. Okay, whereas here we can go 60, 40, 51, 49, 50, 54. We can really fine tune it.
What is like the range if you had to compare it to, one, like what would I feel if I was holding it, right? Like obviously it's not an electrocution. I picture like a static shock or something.
No, it's not even that. It's
Oh,
really
really?
just your muscles twitch.
Okay.
So you probably wouldn't feel it to about 14 or 15-ish.
Okay.
Out of 127 levels. I had one person who didn't feel it until like 60, 80. So, because if you go to like a physical therapist, they'll tell us when it becomes too much. Everybody's number is different. Somebody can be super sensitive and be really low, and another person, same size, same age, same sex, everything, can be very high.
And so I imagine the dogs are the same, right?
Yes.
And then you probably have like a calibration period where you're figuring out their threshold of what gets a reaction, but doesn't
Correct.
get like a yelp.
Correct.
Okay.
So I have, in my theory of training, it's as low as possible, but as high as needed.
Right.
So what this means is every situation is different. If he's playing with dogs, if he's out at the park off leash, did someone blow up a firework and spook him? All these are different contexts. So the way that I train is very much logic based, okay? First class, we always teach heel, which is walking on a leash. My style of heel is very strict. If I take 5 steps, the dog takes 5 steps, I take 3 steps, he takes 3 steps, I stop, he automatically sits. This is what they completely slack leash, I don't care what the environment is, okay? It sounds super complicated, but it's very easy to achieve when you have the correct methodology and tools, okay? So the reason why we teach heel first, one, leash pulling is one of the most common things that people want to fix. Plus there's like leash reactivity. So heel is the foundation for addressing reactivity.
And what do you mean by reactivity? Like a negative reaction if you yank it, he's chewing on it or something like that?
Leash reactivity is when a dog lunges and barks at dogs or humans.
Okay.
Yeah. So those are the two most common things that people want to address is leash reactivity and leash pulling, okay? So when you put an e-collar on a dog and you press the button and you have connection, you would see a twitch, okay? A dog's first instinct is almost always move away because they don't know what it is.
Sure.
So we don't want the dog running away from the collar. We want the dog to move to the collar, okay? So we use heel, which is a moving behavior. So the dog, when they feel the collar, it allows them to express the need to move, but then show them how to move in response, okay? So that's always class 1, 99% of the time, unless I'm dealing with like a super human aggressive dog.
Right.
Then I have to address the aggression first before I can actually teach the obedience. So we teach that first. I help you find what we call the working number. So there are 3 levels: connection, perception, and working, okay? Connection is when you see the twitch, but he's completely unfazed, so he can be staring at that picture, and he's like this, but nothing happens, okay? Perception would be the twitch, and he's kind of like, and then he goes back to the picture, and he's kind of looking around and back to the picture. Working level would be the twitch, and then you see a big response like, hey, what was that, okay? And we always want to be at the, hey, what was that number? And that's going to be different according to the environment, okay? So I teach you how to find this, and I give you structure on how to do this for the first couple weeks. So then you do your homework, okay? So now we gotta start shaping things. So obedience is unnatural to dogs. We have to teach them how to do it. So even though he may have a foundation of sit or down or anything with food, when we're teaching with collar, I want you to think of it as a different language, okay? So teaching him how to sit going like this is one language. Teaching him how to sit using the prong collar is another language.
It's not incentive based anymore, I suppose. It's kind of more like it's got to become a part of his personality, I guess.
Well, obedience is meant to be functional.
Right.
Okay, obedient, I think now people look at it as tricks. Oh, my dog sits, I give him a treat. But the 6-man, sit, stay, down, come, play, seal. Okay? They're all meant to be functional. They're all meant to allow you to do more with your dog. So if he has recall, okay? If recall is a fun thing that he does when he wants, you have unreliable recall, right? But if it's, hey, when I call you, you need to get over here, now I can take him to the park, I can take him to unenclosed areas, I can take him hiking and all that stuff, because it's not optional. It's mandatory that he performs these commands, right? Now, if it's like roll over, give me your paw, that has no real function in terms of living life with them. That's more like, that's just something fun that we do, right? So stuff like that I don't care about. I don't put remote behind, right? Now, can you use remote collar in food? Absolutely. I just don't in the beginning because it's usually too complicated for people, okay? So I know all the methods of training. I know food, I know remote collar, I know prong collar, I know gentle leader, I know slip leash, I know all that stuff. But this is my career. For you guys, it's we want an obedient dog so we can do more things with him, and we don't want to have to go into a new career. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And other methods of training kind of require that, where they're like, oh, like, you know, keep working at it, it'll take a couple of years. And I'm like, a couple of years? You know, some dogs don't live that long. Like, we have a Great Dane that we train, and we train him at a year. He's now 2 years old. Great Danes only live like 8, maybe 12 years.
Sure.
You know? So if they're doing other methods and they're like, yeah, it's gonna take you 2 to 3 years before you train your dog, like that's a quarter of his life already. You know?
Yeah.
So here, all this stuff is functional. It's meant to be used and allow you to do more things with your dog, okay? So can you use food? Absolutely, but we wouldn't do that till later if needed, okay? So here, what we do is we layer the remote behind all the stuff that he's learned, plus, or anything that you want to teach him. So I only cover things that you're gonna use. So like a lot of places are like, oh, you have to like cover like all these other things. Like sit, down, stay, or whatever, before they would actually cover the heel. So a lot of places, heel is the last thing that they teach. For me, heel is the first thing that we teach.
Sure.
Okay? Because again, it's the most common thing that people want to fix, so why would we not want to cover that first? So we cover that, heel, and recall, the two most important things that a dog should learn. So what dictates things of time and cost and stuff is simply how you live your life with your dog. Okay? If it's, hey, we want to walk our dog to the park, and then we want to be able to call him when he's playing with other dogs or something, then you'd be more like in the 6-week range, okay? So I have 3, 6, 9, and 12-week programs. The 3-week program is we just want to walk our dog, okay? The 6-week program is we want to walk our dog, go to dog parks, or go to the park. 9-week program is we walk our dog, go to the park, go to restaurants. 12-week would be we do all that plus hiking, going to the beach and all that other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So here, from what I kind of saw, I think you're like in the 6 to 9 class range.
Mm-hmm.
The 12 class range is like all 6 commands: sit, stay, down, come, play, heel. And I show you how to build them up to off-leash reliability, okay? The only command that has to be off-leash reliable is recall, okay? Because if he's off the leash and you call him and he doesn't respond, it's worthless.
Mm-hmm.
Heel, that's by choice. But the tool of e-collar allows you to get to that degree. The reason why I don't really do prong anymore is because it is an effective tool, but as soon as you remove that leash, you no longer have a means of reinforcement.
Right, his personality completely changes with it. I think the first time we put it on, I was actually surprised. The reaction we got was awesome. He didn't completely hate it until like 30, 40 minutes into the walk.
Mm-hmm.
But you can tell the second you take it off, he knows it's off.
Correct. So the reason why that is, and that happens with any tool that you use, whether you're using positive reinforcement, prong, or e-collar, because whenever you remove the motivator, performance dips, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So, you know, if you work for somebody, would you work for free?
Right,
No, right? So that's like the positive reinforcement. You get your check at the end of every 2 weeks. So if you're not getting that check, why are you gonna work?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing here. If we don't have a negative reinforcer, let's say with humans, if there weren't cops and laws and consequences for running red lights, would people still, obey the laws,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So this is just something that's natural. It's called opportunistic behavior, which means if he can get away without doing something, without having to do something, he'll try it.
Yeah.
Okay, and this is a part of survival instinct. It's nothing good or bad. It's just the way of the world. Even humans do it, which is it's a super common thought process where people ask like, well, when does the dog learn to be a good dog? Like that's not a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Good and bad are human thought processes, right? Dogs have what you allow and what you don't allow. So the things that we don't allow, we provide consequence for. The things that we allow, we don't provide consequence for.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So here, remote collar allows you to do both. It allows you to do both consequence, but also motivator. So you can stop things, but also teach things. Okay? And we cover all that stuff in the training.
Yeah.
Questions so far about this?
So the actual, obviously this probably gets more in depth during training, but the actual use of the remote collar, I mean, how does it even work? You have a remote for it actually, and you're just kind of buzzing it as needed for the various scenarios?
Technically, yes. So the collar only goes off when you're actively pressing the button.
Okay.
Right? And there's different intensities, 127,
Right.
right? So in the beginning, you're using the remote a lot.
Mhm.
Because you're shaping things, you're teaching things, right? But if you're using it correctly and you're using it how we instruct it, you're gonna find your use of the remote goes lower, okay? So once he starts to understand, like, okay, if you say heel and I just walk at your left hip and I stop when you stop and I sit when you stop and I walk at your pace and this and that, I can avoid the collar.
Mhm.
He starts to do that, right? Kind of like with humans.
Right.
If I stop at the red light and I go the speed limit, and I put my blinker on and all that stuff, I can avoid a ticket and being pulled over, right? Same kind of concept here. So in the beginning, you're using it a lot, But then as you use it and your dog's becoming aware of the context of pressure on, pressure off, he'll start to opt, because we're inclined to avoid negative experiences, right? Like we don't want to put ourselves in a uncomfortable position, right? Your instinct is always, how do I remove myself, right? Same thing for him. If he's like, hey, every time I pass you up, the collar goes off, I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
He's going to start deterring from that behavior, okay? So then we shape everything using pressure, whereas people tend to use e-collar as a punisher. So the difference is, when we train dogs, every time we tell them to do something, the e-collar always kicks in, okay? So then the dog goes, all right, well, what happens if I respond really fast? Okay, so if I say sit, boom, he just puts that button down. I can't even tap the button. It becomes a motivator because he's thinking, if I sit fast enough, I can beat you.
So even for a sit, you would use it as, I'm going to say punishment, I know that's not the right term, but you tell him to sit, he doesn't, you're going to give him a little bit of a shock.
No. So, because you just to confirm what you said, I tell him sit, he doesn't do it, he gets the remote, right? That's how most people think.
Okay.
We don't do that. It's sit remote. There is no opportunity to not do it.
Okay.
So that's where people get mixed up, because most people's inclination is either to get the delay or to repeat the command. Sit, 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 shock. Okay? That's a punisher now. Okay? What we do is, so right now when I was pulling up and pushing down, that's technically shaping a sit, but what I care about is that he relax. So if he laid down, I go, that's fine, right? That's pressure on. Once he gives me what I want and I take the pressure off, it's the same thing with remote. I would be pulling up, I would be remoting, and then once he puts his butt down, it disappears.
Is it something that you can you just hold and it puts like a steady pressure on, or are you like pressing it over and over again? Both.
It does both, but we teach using what we call the nick function, which is a pre-timed tap.
Okay.
So even if you hold the button down, nothing happens. Like it's just a tap and that's it. Whereas with continuous, you would feel something, or he would feel something until you let the button go. Okay?
Okay.
So the reason why we do the nick is because the space between the taps allows the brain to process things, where when you keep the pressure on, it doesn't go anywhere, so the dog has no time to kind of process what's going on. Okay? So we say sit, tap. Okay? Whereas most people do sit, you don't do it, then I tap you. Okay? So that becomes the punisher. So even though we're doing the same thing, the way you layer it in changes how the dog perceives it. Okay? So if it's always kicking in every single time I cue something, he's just like, man, that thing, how do I avoid it, right? Boom. Just immediately. As soon as I say sit, he puts that butt down and down, plop, come, boom, he's just coming. He can avoid the tap. So then it becomes the motivator, right? So growing up, I was raised old school, I was spanked. My mom would say like, wash the dishes or I'm gonna spank you. I'm like, all right, well, I don't want to get spanked, so I guess I'm gonna wash the dishes, right? That was a negative motivator. Same thing with like getting good grades. My mom was like, you're gonna get straight A's, and if you don't, there's gonna be a consequence. So I was like, well, I don't want the consequence, so I'm gonna get straight A's. That's dog, okay? So people tend to be, they feel bad. They're like, oh, but like the dog doesn't know, and like, they don't understand. I'm like, even if you explained it to them, they wouldn't.
Right.
You have to just, but with the e-collar, we start low, and we work our way up, and he decides what's gonna be appropriate, okay? Not us.
Right.
That's another thing that people do. Is let's say I have a dog that's very physically tough. So I have an Aussie Doodle, I have two Aussie Doodles that I'm training. One of them, they're both 16 pounds. One of them, her number is 80. The other one is 20, okay? Now the owner of the dog whose number is 80, at first she was completely like, what the hell, right?
Yeah.
But she recognized, yeah, you're right. Everything under 80, the dog just completely blows off. But when I'm at 80, she listens to everything. So I go, your dog's number is 80, right? The average person tends to feel bad. They're like, but the dog's only 16 pounds and this and that. I'm like, I get that, all that logic. But if you're saying, come, and you're tapping at 40, and you can see your dog feel it, and she's still ignoring it, running around and playing and stuff, clearly, it's not appropriate to your dog, right? So that's the main thing with humans, is they tend to be too logical, and they think like a human, and they rationalize things too much, or they overthink it, whereas dogs are just completely like, it's all about what does that particular personality need. Okay, so if you were to respond at 15 for everything, and it was all super fast and reliable, the number's 15.
Right.
But if it's like, hey, when he's playing with dogs, it's 65, and when when he's out in the neighborhood, it's 25, you're just adjusting to the
Right.
context, okay?
With the collar, if we did the training, do you recommend a certain collar?
Yeah, the brand that we use is Dogtra.
Dogtra?
Yep, it's DOGTRA. And Maria would send you this information.
Okay.
Yep. So there's lots of different e-collars out there. You'll see some on Amazon for like 30, 40 bucks. You don't want to get those, okay? Those are very poor technology. I felt them. I felt one, it was 4 out of 100 and my hand like jerked back and I'm like, if that's 4 out of 100, I don't want to know what 100 is, okay?
Yeah.
Ours are very refined, okay? The professional level e-collars, they last for years. I've had mine, my guy's been off these training for 10 years, yeah, about 8 to 10 years now. The only thing that, or the most common thing that does happen is the battery dies, because it's a rechargeable lithium battery, like your cell phone. So you can go on Dogtra, like that just actually happened to a client of mine. I trained her dog a few years ago, and she told me about her battery died, and she just purchased one through Dogtra and replace it themselves. If it's under a year, you can send it to Dogtra and they'll replace it under warranty.
Nice.
So they last a really long time. They're fully waterproof. The collar that he would need is a 1 mile range. So plenty of range for the average dog owner, because these are meant for hunting dogs.
Sure.
So they'll send them out really far. Obviously in the city, you're not gonna get the full mile because of all the buildings and stuff,
Yeah.
but plenty of range obviously for
Yeah,
the
more than
standard
enough,
hunting. Yeah. So they're fully waterproof. You can go swimming in it. The remote is also waterproof, so you can be in a pool, lounging around, having a margarita with the remote around your neck. Nothing's gonna have it, okay? Other questions?
For the classes and the training, are there some in the park or?
Yeah.
Or
So,
how that works?
right now-
Just because I have a really crazy work schedule, so is it always on weekends? Can we pick days, or how does it work?
So if you have a rotating schedule, it's not a problem. The only issue we may have is that, so right now I'm booking into July. Let's say our calendar may not like line up, so I may not see you for a couple of weeks, okay? It's nothing good or bad, it doesn't affect your training, it just gives you more time to practice.
Right.
Okay, so I have another young lady who's like a nurse, and she's like, her schedule's like a rotating.
I'm a nurse too, I literally just got off of work, so if I look glazed over, I'm listening.
You're
I'm
completely
just-
fine. No, I get it.
I just work like 16 hours.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah. So, so she's rotating, right? So I told her same thing. I said, not a problem. So typically what we would do is Maria would get in touch with you. She'd ask for your schedule. And let's say, for example, you had a consistent schedule. She would cross-reference your calendar with my calendar and find where do we have openings, okay? So like, let's say if it was Sunday at like 9 o'clock was open, and you decided to take that time. If you did like a 6-week program, Sunday at 9 o'clock for 6 plus 1, so 7 weeks, is your time. No one's gonna take it from you, okay? Now let's say you cancel or something pops up, and then by the time you hit your 7th class, you have 2 classes left over, but Sundays and weekends are like very busy. Because when we do this, she's already booking people behind you, right? So once the 7th week comes up, Maria will say like, hey, you've used up your, what we call priority. You have 2 classes left. What other times are you available? And then she'll find where she can fit you in to finish the last 2 classes. Now, if you have a rotating schedule, what she'll do is she'll say like, give me your calendar. And if you get like a 4-week calendar or whatever, she'll cross-reference and then put you where we can fit you, okay? But there might be times where I don't see you for a couple weeks, maybe even 3 weeks, because our calendar just doesn't line up, okay? It's nothing good or bad when it comes to training. It's just more time to practice. Because during the week, so some people will ask me to do like training twice or 3 times a week, and I'll tell them no, because it's not enough time to practice, make mistakes. So I always tell people at least once a week. More time is fine. It's just we might get gaps. Okay.
I mean, and then for the training, we recommend like we'll probably rotate. Do a lot of people rotate, or do you feel like people
Should we probably both be there?
Definitely for the first class, you'll both want to be there because that's like the most important one.
Yeah, 'cause the training really, I gotta imagine in the beginning, it's teaching us how to properly train him.
Correct.
So-
It's always teaching the human.
Right.
Yeah.
So, first class is a lot of information, and the 3rd class, or whenever we cover recall, ideally we want both people there.
Okay.
Everything else is pretty straightforward. Plus, we also record things now. So then, if you're like, if
Oh
you
yeah,
miss
that's
the class,
nice, yeah.
If you miss the class,
I could watch what
the
you had
video.
done. Okay.
So that's another positive to it, is you always have a reference point. But that's not a problem. But the first and the first class of the heel and the first class of the recall are definitely classes where both people would be advised to be there. So the great thing about remote collar is once the behavior's been shaped, let's say you taught the heel, happens all the time, where the dog will be super spazzy, and then the first owner will work with the dog, and then they'll pass it off to the husband or wife or whatever, and then the dog's great. Because it's literally, it's super simple. And you can watch our videos. You go on YouTube and you look lesson 1, or lesson 1s are always great to watch because no one knows what they're doing. And you'll just see how quickly the dog just learns the process, okay? Because we're teaching in a way that he understands, whereas people tend to train in a way that the human understands, okay?
Yeah.
So, I mean, think about it as like, if you go to a foreign country and you don't speak their language, you're not going to be able to communicate, you're not going to be able to teach anything, right? You have to learn their language. Same thing here, I know how to speak dog. That's why I can do stuff like this very easily and effectively. I have to teach you how to speak dog. So you'll see, everybody always comments like, man, this is so fast, is this normal? And I'm like, yes. You know, because we're teaching in a manner that he understands,
Right.
okay? And it's also that simple, because it's just press a button, right? So everything's been kind of like whittled down. It's super simple. It's stuff that you can practice as you live your life, okay? So once we teach the heel, I will tell you, every time you walk your dog, you're going to now do this, okay? That becomes your walk now. Once we teach the recall, I'll tell you, anytime you go to the park, you practice the recall, okay? So heel is the fastest thing that people teach, because most people tend to walk their dog multiple times a day. Recall tends to take the longest, okay? Because it requires you to go to the park, pop them on a long leash.
Be in that scenario.
Yep, let them be a dog, so it requires more effort. All the other commands, sit, down, stay in place, can be practiced inside and or outside. So that tends to go according to how much effort the owner puts into it. But the heel and the recall, definitely heel is almost always the fastest thing that the dog learns, and then recall is always the longest, okay? Other questions?
I saw that you've got location options, right? Meeting at Oz Park or here or even in our place. In your opinion, have you found one to be more effective? Because we're super close to here, we're close to Oz Park, and obviously we'd be open to doing it at our own place. But do you find one more effective?
So people love Oz Park.
Okay.
Have you guys been there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy busy.
Yeah.
Dogs,
that's what I feel
people,
like.
rollerbladers, skateboarders.
Because that's what we've run into, you know, in our condo, just the 3 of us listens pretty well, but then you start to inject distractions and it's a whole completely different scenario. So that's why in my mind, I was like, man, Oz Park would be nice because that's the scenario that he struggles with the most, and that's where we would be most beneficial if he was listening to us.
Yeah. So like yesterday, I had like 8 clients. I was at Oz Park all day. And it's just, yesterday wasn't as busy. I think it's because it was a little chilly because of the lakefront, because of the rain and everything. But so we started doing that because of COVID. So I used to do home to home. I used to go to all my clients, and then and it was great. But then I would have issues because then, like, let's say the client, if it was in the wintertime, you know, they only had a hallway, like you only do so much in the hallway and stuff.
Yeah.
So Oz Park, because nobody was at that, then everybody's like, nobody come to my home, right?
Yeah.
So then I was like, all right, I knew, and the other thing is I don't touch the dog. I just coach you through everything now.
Right.
Okay, and so when COVID first happened, I knew I could do it, but people didn't believe it could be done. Because they're like, how's my dog gonna learn if you're not touching my dog, right? And I'm like, I don't need to, trust me. So then it was super slow here. And then we got our first client, post-COVID client, who had signed up pre-COVID and was actually supposed to start on a Sunday, but the Friday before the governor had issued the stay-at-home order or whatever.
Yeah, we had put in like an email and it took like forever, right?
Well, that was like a month ago. I take it you're a lot busier.
Oh yeah, now it's
Now that everybody has a COVID puppy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because our whole block, like you could, everyone is like a COVID puppy, like.
Oh yeah, no, and yeah, it's the 21 is the complete opposite of 2020.
Yeah, that's good.
So yeah, so we got our first post-COVID client, and it was all verbal instruction. And this dog in particular broke the husband's shoulder 3 times, and took him to the ER twice in 2 years. And he was a completely friendly dog. He was just 90 pounds of pure pulling power. And so even though he was super friendly, he injured his owner, and also like he wouldn't recall. Like they would take him to the park and they would have to chase him like the entire time because he wouldn't come back. So after her first class, they were amazed because they're like, holy crap, we can walk our dog now, this and that. He actually listens. And then they did their like testimonial video. And then after that video, people started like signing up. And then we have obviously all the proof of like these methods working without us even having to touch the dog, because we have like at least 100 videos on Heel now.
Yeah.
You know, that people can watch and go like, oh shit, like this actually does work.
Mm-hmm.
So the location actually doesn't matter. So like for my winter clients, because too cold, we would practice in my facility. But that's the beauty of e-collar, is if we're in my facility and the dog's number is 25, because it's controlled context, well, when you go outside, 30, 35, 40,
Right.
45, you just find what's the number for this particular environment.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why it's never a fixed number. It's not like, oh, my dog's number is 22 and it's forever 22.
Right.
But I teach you how to recognize what your dog's number is. So no matter where you're at, you're adapting to the situation.
Right.
Okay?
And, if we pick one location, is it always Oz Park, or can we like do one session in here if it's like raining? Or is it-
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's what we do, because I'm so backed up, like, we had to change the way we operate. So like I opened up my trainer Enrique, and he's already booking up. He was taking my overflow.
Mm-hmm.
So the biggest issue that we had was that when we used to book consultations before, because you guys paid first, right? Like you did,
Yeah.
you paid. So before it would be, you would submit your form, or we would contact you, she would schedule your consultation, and then she would invoice you. And then she'd have to chase people for like paying the invoice on stuff. So it's just wasting her time.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So then we flipped it. I'm like, all right, they're gonna submit the form, they're gonna pay, and if they don't pay, they're at the end of the list in terms of priority for us.
Right.
And I even thought about making it pay first to fill out the form even, because we're trying to filter out so many people.
Right.
So that kind of helped clear up a lot of things, because Maria was getting so overwhelmed with not just, because she's got to manage my current client base, whereas I'm at around 30 to 40 clients right now. She's got to manage onboarding new clients. She's also got to do consultation requests, right? So it's, and then everybody, it's like not as straightforward as people think.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are like, sign us up, yes, we'll do it, boom, beautiful. But most people, it's like, questions about this, questions about that, you know, what happens if this happens and whatever.
Right.
So, but yes, if we meet at Oz Park and like that Saturday, it's like, oh, if that's the day or whatever, it's inclement weather,
Mhm.
we will just transition to here.
Okay.
And what I do is I just shift things, okay? If we're gonna work on, you know, recall or something and it's gonna be raining all week, I teach you something that you'll practice inside. Because what's the point of practicing, teaching recall if you're not gonna be able to practice for a week, right?
Yeah.
So I just adapt it to what's going on. But even if we have to do like this is my puppy room, and I do like real simple stuff in here with my clients. We also have this building is 13,000 square feet. The main floor is, I believe, 8 to 9,000 square feet, maybe even more. And my training floor is about approximately 4 to 5,000 square feet. So we can practice heel, we can practice recall, we can practice long leash commands, all that stuff. We have plenty of space here.
Yeah.
Then it's just so we can have the class so you don't kind of fall back.
Mhm.
And then you just apply that to the real world.
Sure.
Okay, so it doesn't matter where we meet technically. The only time in-home is something that I would recommend for someone is if you're dealing with behavioral issues. So like I have a gentleman right now who's doing in-home, and his dog is very territorial to the home. So when people would come in, he would just be like a nightmare. So for him, it made sense that he did training at his place.
Right.
But because he paid for in-home, which is a higher rate now, when we go to meet at a park, he could choose Office Park if he wants to, or he could choose a park that's near him.
Sure.
You know, because that's what he's paid for.
Yeah.
So if you decide for in-home, there is a different fee, because to make things easier, we just picked one spot, and I go, Oz Park's the busiest park in Chicago, so it's great for the client.
Right.
It just makes things easier, and I can also get more people in within the day. Because then if I have to leave to go to your home and then come back, that now attacks on more time in the day, and it's harder to fit in.
Yeah.
Okay? But Oz Park, in my opinion, is the best
Yeah, that's what we
location.
were
Yeah, I like
thinking.
that idea.
Mhm.
I mean, like I was saying, well, all right, so another question. I would say his biggest flaw is his move where he lays down when another dog's kind of coming
Yep.
and he just waits.
Not a problem.
What is that? Because it seems like a passive behavior and it's always friendly, right? Like he's just waiting until the dog gets to reach and then he hops up and wants to play.
Yeah.
So,
It can be stalking, but stalking doesn't always mean negative.
right.
Right, like stalking can mean hunting,
Sure.
or stalking can be preparing for like the playful pounce.
Right.
You know, and I have a couple other dogs, same issue. It's not a problem. It's super easy to address.
Cool.
Okay. Other questions?
What's his other bad habits?
Honestly, I don't like the laying down, like when we walk, because then I just feel like I have to like wait, because he is.
Well, and obviously he's scary to people who don't know him.
Sure.
Yeah,
you
he
know,
really
we
does.
know he means no harm, but he sure looks harmful.
Yeah, I
to
think
the
people are
dog.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because you got a power breed, you know. So, not uncommon. But if the laying down is like the biggest problem you have, like that's good.
Yeah.
You know.
That's like,
I mean, he's still a chewer, but that's just
So
par
that's
for
just
the
like
course
more
in
of
my
a
mind.
puppy, right? Just
No,
like-
you can correct the chewing. So the chewing can be a couple of things. The chewing can be because he loves to chew.
Mhm.
Chewing can be boredom,
Yeah.
frustration.
Oh, yeah.
Because when they can't outlet that, it's got to go somewhere.
Yeah.
But you can correct it. Okay, so like let's say he's chewing on like the couch leg, right? Because he doesn't understand that the couch is something that you've paid for,
Right.
and that you would like him not to destroy. Is if another dog didn't want him to do that, the dog would just come up and bite him
Mhm.
and just say, "Don't chew on the couch leg," right? So I teach you how to correct that, but that can also be from a lack of discipline. And actually, for dogs, when they don't have structure and discipline, it can lead to frustration because they kind of lose themselves. So then it's got to, the energy's got to go somewhere. So dogs are very mouth expressive, licking, chewing, nipping, biting, barking, whining, like he's whining right now, right? Howling, they're very mouth based.
Mhm.
So here, you might find potentially that the healing exercise will actually address the chewing.
Sure.
Oh, okay.
Because it helps.
It like provides more structure in their brain and
Yeah.
a sense of purpose and all that stuff.
Yeah, because a structure to dog is physical consequence, whereas structure to a human is I take my dog to go potty in the morning after work and before bed, and I feed him in the morning and I feed him at night, right? That's human structure, but dog structure is if he does something and gets out of line, another dog would bite him. So the e-collar, I like to call it a bite on a button, is you're nipping and biting at him. So now you're talking his language. So now he's starting to get what he needs. And that actually helps soothe dogs. But people think that physicality is bad, but physicality is healthy. It just depends on how you apply it, okay? So I get some dogs, like I'm known for very difficult cases. I do a lot of aggression cases. And just because we deal with aggression doesn't mean we're at 127 on the collar. But if I have to go there, I will go there to shut down the behavior, right? But that's what makes me effective. Right? So when I'm working with my clients, that's why I say if you're not willing to go there, you're not going to get any real results because the dog knows when Jesse's around, this happens, but when he's not around, you're a softie.
Yeah.
Okay? But the physicality aspect of it helps pacify a lot of dogs because that's just the nature. Okay?
Just these like last 2 weeks, he's gotten really weird about like, I don't know if it's door dashing, but he like gets really like wants to scratch our balcony door. And as soon as you open it, he just like runs out and like zooms. But like the front door or anything, he doesn't like run out or anything.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something weird?
No, I mean, it sounds like he's communicating, hey, let me out so I can go run around.
That's
Yeah.
literally it? Okay. 'Cause, like,
Yeah, I think it's funny because it's like we've got back and front doors, and he attributes the two doors completely different. Back door, he knows the car's back there, so he's going for a ride, or he's going out on the balcony to hang out while we're on the porch. But the front one, he's just got like a pee mat, and but I had always like right away. I'm like, he just knows the back equals fun, and the front is more business, so less exciting.
Yeah, no, dogs learn by association, kind of like kids. So growing up, my mom was like, we're going to church, and I'm like, all right, and she's like, we're going to Disneyland.
Yeah.
Okay, I wasn't sure because he just gets like so excited and he like yelps when he runs outside.
Yeah, he's just letting out energy.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's nothing good or bad, but if it's something you don't want him to do, you can stop it. Okay, I leave that to the owner. I always say your house, your rules.
Right.
So it's nothing if you like. It's not mean. Like I had a client who's when he had a Great Dane puppy and his dog used to zoom around. And I told him, like, you should stop this, right? Because I was thinking ahead of time. He's like, oh, but it's cute and funny. I'm like, all right, it's your house rules, but I'm like, I'm letting you know that dog's gonna be bigger, and the fact that you're allowing it it remains an option for
Yeah,
him.
we have a couple of those where it was cute and funny 6 months ago, and it's not.
And
It's
that-
neither anymore.
Yeah. Well, the dog ended up breaking like a $3,000 TV
Yeah.
when he was a
That'll
year
do
old,
it.
And then they I was like, I told you, dude, But yeah, as with the program, when it comes to stopping things, it's simple because it's simply apply and aversive. When it comes to teaching things, that's something that's not natural to him. We have to invest more time to
Sure.
educate him. Okay. Other questions?
I don't think so.
So the 12-week is like off-leash, recall, and
Most intensive.
Yeah, the 12-week is sit, stay, down, come, place, heel. 6 commands, and we teach them all, and I help you build them as close off leash as reliable. reliable as possible.
Do most people opt for like the 12 weeks, or do you see like 9 weeks?
6 to 9 tend to be the most common.
Okay.
Yeah, so because a lot of people just care about leash pulling and their dog returning. So 6 week is super common. The 9 week is usually for those who have like a dog that has behavioral issues and they want a little bit of wiggle room in case like we're having difficulties addressing reactivity or something. It's typically straightforward, but every now and then I do get a more difficult dog, so then people opt for the 9 so that we have more classes. Because
You have the option to just tack on more.
That's what I was
Like if
gonna
we
say.
get halfway started and we're like, crap, he's gonna need a couple more than what we originally
yes,
thought.
so the way that would work though is we wouldn't prorate it.
Yeah. Right.
So if you bought 6, that's 1,000, and you bought another 6, that's another 1,000, right?
Yeah.
But if you commit the 12 up front, I think it's like 1725 or something, so
Okay.
it's cheaper per class.
Sure.
The reason why we do this is because you're telling us right off the bat, we want 12, right? So we go, okay, we're gonna give you a cheaper per class rate, but also you wanna remember your priority, right? So if you're doing 12, you're getting 13 weeks of my time, but if you do 6, you get 7, but then if you have to book someone right after you and you decide to extend, you'd have to either wait a time frame or go to a different time, which I don't care.
Sure.
But you can do that, it would just not be prorated,
Okay.
okay? Other questions?
I don't think so. You guys send like a pamphlet of everything over, right?
Marie will get in contact with you. So what she'll send you is the make and model that I would recommend for the e-collar. Okay, you can get them on Amazon or you can get them through us. And she would give you the pricing. I probably just have her send you the pricing for the 6, 9, and 12. It's also visible on my website. If you go to my website and just go to obedience training, you'll see, it'll say Oz Park and it'll give the rate for Oz Park, and it'll say in-home and it'll give the rate for in-home. So she'll send you those 6, 9, and 12 week rates for the Oz Park. And then if it's like bad, weather one day, we'll just meet here. So then we just keep things rolling, but also my calendar doesn't get backed up. So then the other thing would be, what was I just gonna say? I just forgot.
Yeah, no
I'm sure I
worries,
remember.
honestly, I just need to. They do the board and train too, right?
Oh yeah, that's also an option. So the pros and cons, just so you're aware, in-person training, you learn a ton more.
Right.
Because I teach you to teach him.
Because that's kind of where my head's at. It's like, I know that we probably have more to learn, at least in the immediate
Yeah.
first few lessons than Pete's got to learn. Like, like what you showed us just there, it's like, we're just doing it wrong. That's kind of what it comes down to. But we were thinking about board and train for like, if we go on vacation for a week, it's a great solution in my mind, but probably not something in the immediate future.
Right.
I see a lot of value in me learning.
No,
as
for
well.
sure. And when I deal with behavioral cases, I always tell people you want to do this yourself because you have to live with your dog, right? So the pros would be you learn a ton more. Con would be there's going to be a delay just because I'm booked into July. It also takes longer, right? So if you're wanting a fully trained dog, you're looking at 12 weeks. Oh, and now I remember what I was going to say. Is if you do a 12-week pro, because I structure things differently. Okay, so if you do 6 weeks, I'm thinking, okay, so we're going to cover in 6 weeks, right? If you do 12, I go, okay, I have you for 12, you obviously want all of this. Is once we get to like class 9 or so, 10, 11, and 12, I usually recommend that people space out. Okay, so it wouldn't be consecutive. Now this is optional. You can absolutely finish all 12 classes sequentially. Or I go, all right, you've learned everything that you need to start building towards off-leash reliability. I suggest you space these out. Go practice for a month,
Right.
2 months, come back for class 10.
Right.
Go back and practice some more, come back for class 11. Because especially in the wintertime, it would happen a lot where the owners like continue to practice and it'll just snow
Yeah.
all week, so they didn't get the time, so they would come back, like honestly, Jesse, I didn't get to practice. So we're not building on anything, okay? So that's an option. When it comes to the board and train, the pro is we have space, we can get you in really soon. The con is all the training is tied to us. So we have to transfer it to you. You do get follow-up private lessons with the board and train. We also make videos. So if he did a 1 week board and train, you would get one video. It's usually about an hour to hour and a half, okay? And it's Enrique, he's my training facility manager. He shows you raw and uncut the first session of everything he teaches Ollie, right? He teaches this guy. So then we send it to you once it's completed, and you would review that, and then you would take him, you would go practice what you learned. Okay, if there's anything that you're having discrepancies on, you would contact Enrique, you would set up a follow-up with him, he'd meet you at Oz Park, and he's like, what's going on? You're like, hey, we're struggling with the recall. He would help you kind of fix anything that you're struggling with there, and then you go off and you keep practicing, okay? So with the board and train, we teach all 6 commands in the first week, okay? So we cover everything immediately. And think of 1 week here as like 3 weeks of your time.
Sure.
Okay, so that's the pro of it. The con is just that it's tied to us, so we have to transfer to you, so there's always some kind of work for the owner.
Right.
But with a case like this, it's so simple that it's an option for you. If this was like a more difficult behavioral case, I get a lot of people that want to do board and train, I'll tell them no, because if it's anything involving aggression or reactivity, that's really something that the owner is going to want to learn how to handle. This guy is pretty much for the most part just obedience, aside from the laying down thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions?
And then you guys have like 1 day training, right? Or drop off daycare? What is it? Daycare here?
Daycare and train.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So that's the same thing as a board and train. Sorry, it's like heartburn.
Oh no, it's okay.
It's like the way it works is you drop him off in the morning for daycare, but he's trained throughout the day, and you would pick him up. So drop off is at 7 or later, 7 to 10. Pick up is between 3 to 7. Our suggestion is you drop him off as early as possible, and pick him up as late as possible, so you get the full, 12-hour day.
Sure.
You do get less follow-up with the daycare train, but you still also get the videos. Okay.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, with the board and train, because it's more expensive, we have the dog for longer. There's more follow-up involved with it. But like a 5-day daycare train would be the equivalent of a 1-week board and train. Okay. Expect if you did any of these options that if you've not received or watched the video, you're not employing anything that we've taught you, he's not going to behave himself.
Right.
Once you have your video and you can start applying what we've taught him and or have your lesson, then you're going to start to see everything that he's learned. Okay, because a lot of people question that. They're like, hey, like I paid for this and like I got my dog back and like he's all over the place. I'm like, yeah, because we've not done anything with you. We need to transfer that. Okay. Otherwise, those are also options for you. Just because this is a simple case.
And then if we wanted to, you said you're booked all the way until July, so we wouldn't really start until August.
Yeah, according from what I heard from Maria, like I think she's booking July now.
Okay.
Okay. So not that you would start in August. I believe there are start dates in July, but she knows that better than I do.
Okay. And then you do also like weekday classes, right? Like,
Yeah.
Like at 4 or 5, like you have options like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
The issue is that most people are 9 to 5 now, so evenings and weekends is my schedule. So those are the most demanded times.
Right.
If you had times where you're available, like 10 o'clock on a Friday or something, that would be more likely to be open and more immediately available.
Yeah.
But Maria would know all that stuff.
Okay.
Okay. Other questions?
No. Yeah, good.
So Maria will follow up with you.
Okay.
If you have any other questions, feel free to reach out. And then, she'll give you the rates and stuff, and then you can see them all on our website, my website as well. And then you can access any of the videos on my website. Will take you to my YouTube channel, and you can go there and you can see like all the videos that we have.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Awesome. It was a pleasure meeting you guys.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
There you go, buddy.
Yeah, you wanna leave.
And you said this was too low. It should be more like here,
It
right?
should be up. Yeah, it's probably like 2 prongs too loose.
God, that just feels so tight, but I get what you're saying. I took 2 off right away. Come on, buddy. Awesome, guys. Thank you. I appreciate it. You can let us know. Thank you.
And then Jesse will be with you guys shortly.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Here you go, man.
There's an attack. Please, sit.
Good boy, thank you.
Good boy.
Yes,
Boy,
good
thank
boy.
you. Please. Yeah.
They do sometimes.
It is right now. Place. Place. Hello. How you
Hi.
doing? How are you?
Good, how are you?
Doing good. So we have. You guys aren't place related to like Lauren or like Jillian Santucci?
There's a lot of Santucci's
You're
here.
so
No.
funny. I work with a family where I train like 3 of their dogs. So
Yeah.
I'm like, is this another? Okay. So we got Louie here. Louie. And I'm sorry, sir. What's your name?
I'm Lenny.
Lenny.
Yes.
Pleasure. All right, let me